Story 1. I stalked my husband for 2 years before I formally met him. I, 24 female, married my husband, 28 male, about a year and a half ago. The first time I saw my husband, I was a freshman in high school. He was a freshman in college. He was walking his dog at the park when he stopped to talk to my brother, 27 male, because they happened to go to high school together. That was the moment I became hooked. That same day, I found his Instagram, his family's social media, and also where he lived since my brother offered to walk him home while I tagged along. When I got home that day, I knew I wanted him. But, of course, I was only 14, and he was 18, so I came up with a plan. I found out his younger brother was only 1 year younger than me and would be attending my current high school. I figured that I have to befriend his younger brother by any means possible next year when he moves up as a freshman while I became a sophomore. And I did. It took around halfway of my junior year where we became best friends, and he invited me over regularly to his house to hang out. This is where I was able to befriend my current husband's mom. And man, did she love to talk about him. From her, I found out what college he goes to, his past girlfriends, what his elementary and middle school was, his favorite or least favorite foods, his pet peeves, what he likes, etc., etc. Eventually, when my visits started getting more and more frequent, I formally met current husband again. Current husband, I'll call him E, would come over every other week and stay for either Friday through Sunday or Saturday to Sunday. On those days specifically, I would wear my cutest outfits to impress him, and also joke around with him a lot. Eventually, I befriended him as well. A little background on E. He is the school record holder for a certain sport at my school, which I just so happened to do. And around halfway through my senior year, E came back during the season to help coach the current high school athletes, which included me, in order to get some more volunteer work hours in, and I got to spend a lot more time with him. I loved every second of it. We were friends before, but then we became much closer since I got to spend lots of extra time with him after school, where sometimes he would even drive me home since we lived relatively close. Fast forward to when I had to move away to New York City for college. E moved with me since he coincidentally got a job near my college. Edit. I lied. It wasn't a coincidence. I found out he got a job offer and applied to a college nearby his workplace. Being each other's only friends in a new state, we became incredibly close. We started dating when I was almost a sophomore year of college. He proposed to me after I graduated, and we just got married almost a year ago. He knows absolutely nothing about how I truly know him, and believes it's fate that brought us together through his younger brother. Lately, I've been debating on whether or not I should tell him, or at least his younger brother, the truth, since the only reason I befriended him was to get closer to E. I feel guilty every time he tells others our love story because the truth is, I've known him for 10 years, while he's only known about me for 7. Update. I read a reply saying that the best thing for myself is to keep it a secret, which is what a lot of people are saying. But the best thing for him is to tell him. And I figured that person really is right. I will be telling him this Tuesday on his day off. He deserves to know who he married. Update, July 6, 2023. I told him this 4th of July. After the fireworks mostly ended and we were heading back, I asked him in the car, wouldn't it have been weird if we met each other before the first time we actually met? But we just didn't think of each other as significant at the time? He smiled and turned to me saying, that's impossible. There is no universe where we would have met and I would not think of you as significant. That statement struck me in the heart because I knew I would soon prove that sentence very wrong. But I continued on with my plan anyway. What if I told you we've met each other before? Before that time I was introduced as E's little brother's friend. He looked at me like I was crazy. So that's when I pulled over on the side of the road and pulled out my phone to show him the post I put up here before that explained everything. He took about 8 minutes to read the whole thing, and when he finished, he put the phone down and stared straight ahead, almost like he was dumbfounded, scared and confused all at the same time. I started throwing out every excuse and apology I could muster at the moment for about 15 minutes straight when he decided to tell me to stop. And I did. Then he just sat there and sobbed uncontrollably for about 10 minutes before he finally asked me how much of a relationship and how much of my identity was fabricated according to his liking. I told him the honest truth. None of my personality or identity was fabricated for him, except for the fact of how we met. The only thing I ever changed about myself to make him like me more was lying about liking Chinese food. I hate Chinese food. But other than that, everything else was real. Although my friendship with his younger brother was built upon ill intentions, my friendship between his brother and I are now one of the most genuine friendships I have now. He just cried and told me that he does not want to divorce me at all, but he does want us to have some time apart so he could absorb the truth that I gave him. He also said that he expects me to tell his brother and mom this Friday, because they deserve to know the truth just as much as he did. I told him, okay, and we drove the rest of the ride home in silence. When we got home, he hugged me and cried for about 5 minutes before he got out of the car, packed his stuff, and said that he'll be staying at a nearby hotel for now. He said that he knows that he still loves me, but does not yet know how to react to the fact that the beginning of our relationship was very, very orchestrated. To sum it all up, I guess telling him was a success? I honestly don't know. He sent me a good night and I love you text last night while he was at the hotel, so I guess he's not as much mad as he may be betrayed. Update 2. Woke up this morning to find out that hubby not only lied about going to a hotel to stay at, but also lied about not wanting a divorce through a text message. He went to his family's home, not a fracking hotel. Told them the entire story himself, probably exaggerated it too much to make me seem crazy. His whole family wants nothing to do with me, too. Claims I'm psycho. He said that he lied about going to a hotel because he knew if he told the truth, I would try to stop him? Honestly, I feel so betrayed. I tried to be a good wife by showing him the true me, and this is what he does? I did all this work just for it to end up like this? Honestly, I kind of deserve it. I didn't even tell him in the first place because I felt bad. I told him because I had a suspicion that he was catching on to the fact that I knew him for 2.5 years before he knew me, largely because I found out he was keeping my old phone in his work desk. My old phone that has screenshots of a lot of his old Instagram posts, plans in my notes app about him, etc. So I guess he never truly loved me if he can't even get past an honest confession like this one. I might update this in a few years when I find a new husband. Yeah, is she the a-hole? Kinda. I mean, if you took these situations and the intention was not to actually get with this person that you really genuinely love, but to take them for all they've got or to do some kind of grievous harm to them, or if you reversed the genders, every part of that would scream that was the wrong thing to do. It's the basis of the relationship. They might have a great relationship, but since it's now based on an exaggeration and a bunch of lies, how are you expecting to find the trust? How were you expecting him to try and trust you again? Yeah, you are the a-hole, and I'm sorry it ended up that way. Story 2. Am I the a-hole for telling a social worker the real reason my sister wants a foster kid? I'm 28 female, and I have a sister, 36 female. For the sake of story, I'll just call her Jane. Jane is married to Bob, and they have 2 kids, a boy and a girl. My niece and nephew are wonderful kids, and no trouble at all. They fight as siblings do, but nothing big. I love them. Now, for about 2 years, I lived with my sister. It was a miserable time that really affected our relationship. She saw me as free labor, money, and babysitting. Even when I managed to get a small part-time job, she demanded I hand over nearly half my pay or get out. It was hell, and she took complete advantage of me. I moved out as soon as I could, and we have little contact outside of family gatherings. Now, after I moved out, she started complaining how she has no help with the kids and never gets a break. I babysit sometimes, but I have made it clear just 'cause I'm off work doesn't mean I want an 8-hour day with my niece and nephew. Anyway, she started talking about how she wanted to foster a kid. Not a kid, but a teenager. I presented her for more info on this. She wants to adopt a teenager, so she has a live-in babysitter for her kids. This is her logic. I want a kid around 16 or 17. Someone who may have been in the system for a while. They can share a room with your nephew. She only has a 3-bedroom house, or sleep in the garage. They can help me with housework, chores, cook, and help me with my business. She bakes and sells cookies. Also babysits the kids so me and Bob can go out sometimes and have some alone time. They'll be so grateful for a home and won't complain. I won't have to pay them at all, and then when they turn 18, I can just sign up for another foster kid. A teenager will be so much easier than a little kid. They'll be grateful just to have a roof, food, siblings, if they've been separated from their real ones, and clothes. I was horrified. Told her it was a horrible idea. She didn't listen to me. She went on with it anyway. About a month ago, a social worker showed up at my apartment to ask some questions about my sister. She had put me down as a character witness or something like that. I immediately told the social worker why my sister really wanted to foster a kid and how she treated me when I lived with her. The lady thanked me. My sister called crying, saying that she wouldn't be considered for any adoptions or fosters. The social worker told her that they felt her home and her weren't a good fit. She asked if I said anything, and I told the truth. She went off on me, hung up, and we haven't spoken since. She has sent some angry texts. A couple family members are on her side. They think foster kids are fracking dogs or something and would be so happy just to have a roof and would gladly do all the housework. So am I the a-hole here? No. I mean, you might think that she might be acting out of a little bit of pettiness for the way she was treated before. But overall, I think this is good because I don't think she believes these foster kids should be treated like, indentured servants. That's just not the way it works. I mean, almost completely not the a-hole. These are real people, and just using them for your own gains, it's just, no, it's not good. They're the a-hole, not this person.
Please like and subscribe if you made it this far. I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the video and have a wonderful day.
Story 3. Accidentally burned down my neighbor's fence, and she tries to milk me for $10,000. Judge humbles that butt up real quick. It's been about 4 years since this happened. I was about 18 at the time, working for a security company. There were constant call-offs and no-shows. I have no idea why. But being so young and naive, I was constantly working 16-hour shifts and not coming home until 8 a.m. Also, I lived with my father at the time. The time frame of this was around the 4th of July. I finally had a day off and my best friend was back in town for vacation. We decided to get together and chip in on some good old American fireworks. To be fair, I've had nothing but bad experiences with fireworks, so I had no idea how this would be any different. We got home with the fireworks, and we laid them all out on the floor. Sparklers, bottle rockets, cakes, and Roman candles. I say, why don't we mess around with some sparklers since it's still not dark yet? Great idea. We go into my backyard where it hasn't rained in well over 2 months and is extremely dry. You see the problem here? One of the little sparkies from mine and my friend's sparkler made contact with the ground and made two small fires that quickly spread to a large area. I ran as fast as I could to grab the garden hose and quickly started spraying down the fire. It was no use. It was spreading faster than I could spray it. I handed my friend the hose and called 911. What felt like hours was only 4 minutes, and the fire was spreading to the neighbor's fence. The neighbor came outside, and they were fairly calm to grab the hose and spray down the fence, along with the dead grass in her yard. The fire department finally shows up, and I tell my friend, "Only one of us needs to get in trouble. You should leave." He was reluctant to leave because he felt equally responsible, but I convinced him. I didn't want him to get in trouble and have to drop out of college. My neighbor was super chill about the entire situation at first. I told her that we could talk about replacing the fence and get some quotes to repair it. She was just super grateful that everyone was okay. About 2 hours after the fire, the arson/fire investigator came to question me about the fire. I told him the truth. I said I was in the backyard by myself playing with fireworks and accidentally lit the ground on fire. I had gotten off that day without being hit by any charges and was commended for being honest. Here is where it goes downhill very fast. About a week later, I got a knock on the door from the neighbor. I opened the door, and she handed me 2 pieces of paper for me to look at. There was a quote for the fence valued at around $4,000 and an estimate for lawn care valued at around $6,000. These were really shady and just typed out on a Microsoft Word document. No logo or company name. She then adds, "I will also be having you pay my water bill for 3 months because the new yard will need lots of water." Now, the fence this woman had before was raggedy and falling apart. Her yard? Dead grass, weeds everywhere. Never mowed it. Now, looking at this paper, she wants a mahogany fence and a brand new backyard with flowers and trimmed hedges? I said, "I need to get an estimate myself. This doesn't feel right." She says, "Remember, you agreed to replace my fence, and a real man keeps promises." I shut the door and called my dad to tell him about what just happened. He flipped the frack out and told me, "Son, don't you give that sloot a single dime." He gives me the number to his handyman and tells me to take care of it. The next day, I have the guy come out for an estimate, and the neighbor ran outside flailing her arms. "I did not give you permission to get an estimate on my fence." Technically, it separates the property line, so it's both of our fences. She calls the cops on me for having a contractor, and they ultimately can't do a single thing because I'm on my property, and he quickly finishes the estimate off at $1,200. I also knew a guy who did lawn care from my time working at the grocery store. He estimated the lawn reseeding while she was away from the house to be about $800. After I get these estimates, I give copies to the woman, and she's having none of it. "I don't know these people. I don't want them near my house. They're probably really awful contractors." I said, "No, I know them personally. They're really nice people and do great work." She shut the door in my face, and I went on my way. I ended up working a 16-hour shift that night and got home at 8 a.m. And this woman came knocking on my door at 9 a.m. and demanded I speak to her. I explained, "I would really love to do this, but I just got home and I have to be back at work in less than 5 hours. I need to sleep." She goes, "What kind of lazy jerkwad sleeps in until 2 p.m.? At this point, I had lost it, and I told her, "You can either accept my $2,000 for my quotes or kiss my butt and get nothing." She stood there for a while with her mouth gaped open, but she accepted my offer and planned to meet me down at the notary the next morning. I spent that night after I got off work writing a contract and gathering the $2,000 in cash. The next morning, I wake up and grab this contract to meet down at the notary. I was thrilled to finally be done with this broad and never speak to her again. I waited for her for over 3 hours, and she didn't show up. I got a call from her saying, "I'm sorry, the $2,000 isn't enough. I'm having my guys start work on this project, and you'll be paying me full price." "Oh, really?" After that, I did not say a single word to her, and I watched her for a few months as these guys turned her backyard into an oasis, complete with a small pond, brand new sod and flowers, the whole 9 yards. Come to find out, she had plans to remodel these things for a long time and was just waiting for the opportunity to go through with it. Also, in this time, she used her remodel funds to go on a trip to Hawaii. You know how I found out about this? She was bragging about it on the neighborhood Facebook group and didn't know I was in it. I have a different Facebook name than my real name. Are you ready for my revenge? Now, 4 months after the fire and all the remodels, I get served papers to go to court for $10,300. At 18 years old, I'm having to hire a lawyer to work my case. When we finally do get into court and I lay everything out, the quotes, being harassed multiple times, not showing up after agreeing to a deal, not wanting me to get my own quotes, required by the law, by the way, and her bragging about messing me out of money, and I have proof of all of this, the judge looked at her and said, "Ma'am, with all due respect, you're out of your mind. Not only did this young man tell the truth of what happened, he offered to pay you more than he was supposed to. Your lawn was already dead before the fire occurred, therefore he's only responsible for the fence of $1,200. I will also deduct from this his lawyer's fees, $800. So I burned this woman's fence down, and all I'm having to give her is $400? Cool. She took a huge financial loss from this. Not sure how much the Hawaii trip cost her, but she was in serious debt. She ended up having to sell the house because of it and moved into a smaller house. Haven't heard anything from her since. Too long didn't read? Burned my neighbor's fence down, seeing it as an opportunity to milk an 18-year-old to remodel her backyard and go on a trip to Hawaii, takes me to court, and walks out $9,600+ in debt. I also wanted to clear a few things up. I'm not saying that I do not feel bad for burning down my neighbor's fence. I felt really bad about it and wish we could have handled it more civilly. I would have been happy to meet in the middle and get multiple quotes. To this day, I still do not use fireworks because we could have really hurt someone. What I have learned through this, though, is it's best to take responsibility for your actions from the gate. The fire investigator had seen the leftover fireworks near the area of the fire and said he would have slapped cuffs on me and I would have been in jail for arson if I would have given him any other answer. I was not criminally charged, and the incident was deemed an accidental fire. No, I would say he was not the a-hole. In fact, he took every opportunity to cover his a-hole and make sure everything was documented. Very, very smart, too. I don't know if this was revenge. It's just, this was self-defense. This woman thought she could just milk a free new lawn out of it. And she just paid tragically, very tragically. Because of all this, she had to sell the house just because she wanted a nicer backyard? Just kind of lazy. Ugh. Story 4. EM yells at me for wearing a tank top on a school trip because her son shouldn't see that. 1. Most of the girls were wearing them because it's 100 degrees. 2. I'm a teacher. The players are OP, me, EM, entitled Mom, Mrs. T, my teacher, and Mrs. A, another teacher. I've been a student teaching this spring in a 6th grade class. It's been a stressful semester, but a good one. Since day one, I have been treated 100% like a colleague and equal by my teacher and her grade-level partners. I'm very baby-faced and don't always look like I'm in my 20s, but I know these kids very well. I subbed for them a lot last year and in the past fall, so they already have respect for me, and we have a decent relationship. This week, we're on a camping trip with 4 total classes. I finished student teaching, but my teacher invited me on as a teacher to get the experience. We mostly hang in the medical lodge and make sure kids take their meds each day. Easy gig after months of teaching. The kids are happy to see me. Anyways, we arrived at camp. I rode on the bus with my teacher. 2 of the other teachers drove their cars with student luggage, as did some of the parents. I got off the bus, and started to head down to the lodge with the other teachers for our meeting with the camp director and the counselors. I stopped off to fill my water bottle before heading down. As I finished up, a mom came up to me. I smiled and was about to greet her. "You can't wear that." "Excuse me?" "Young lady, this is so inappropriate for a school setting. You're going to distract my son and all the other boys. I'm going to have to ask you to change as soon as we get to our cabins." For reference, I was wearing jeans, a black undershirt, and a tank top with thick straps that covered my bra. You literally only saw my black undershirt that kept my bra from being seen through my shirt. Oh, and it was 100 degrees Fahrenheit. I let out a small chuckle. I thought it was a silly mix-up we could laugh about later. Nope. That set her off. "Don't you dare laugh. I'm serious. Who is your teacher? You're so disrespectful. No wonder you're dressed like that, trying to get the boys' attention, I bet." I put on my best polite teacher dealing with parent smiles. "Whose parent are you?" She told me. Her kid was a troublemaker from another class. "Mrs. E.M., I don't know if you're aware of this, but I'm not a student. I'm a teacher. And the camp's dress code allows my students to wear tank tops, so do not ask them to change." "Now you're lying to me? Where is your teacher? I'm getting you sent home." One of my teacher's partners, Mrs. A., overheard the yelling and came over. Also in a tank top. "Is there something you need, Ms. O.P.?" I shook my head. "No, I was just introducing myself to Mrs. E.M. She didn't know Mrs. T. had a student teacher this year." Mrs. A. nodded earnestly. "Ms. O.P. has been such an asset to all of us this semester. Your son actually got a few science lessons from her this year. She's going to be a great teacher." E.M. was absolutely red in the face. Later that afternoon, we brought all the parents down to our air-conditioned lodge to talk them through the week ahead. Mrs. T., who is kind of our grades team captain, introduced me to the parents. Everyone except E.M. was happy to meet me, and a few even said their kids loved having me as one of their teachers. The best part of the week so far was when her son ran up to me at dinner and asked in front of his mom, "Miss O.P., can you teach 7th grade next year so you can be one of my teachers? I'm going to miss you." No, not the a-hole. People get hot. Women get hot. And I think it's up to the mom to teach the kids how to behave around people however they're dressed. I mean, and she was being completely respectful, even though she was getting yelled at and being mistaken for a student. Really, I mean, this was not some kind of really come hither spaghetti strap tank top or anything. It sounds like it was just something that allowed her to stay cool. Definitely not the a-hole.
Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.